Please
All right.
welcome Streaming for Vengeance, legend at concert extraordinaire, promoter. Wow, you blow my mind with this book. Mr. Danny Zelisko, really, it's an indescribable, incredible career. And I'm sure the book only touches on little parts of it, but my gosh, that book is like a tome of history. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that all came out, and it's been over a period since it first started of actually putting on shows in 1974, which I just passed the 47-year mark last week for my first show. I can't believe it sometimes, and the rest of the time it's just business as usual. It's another day and more adventures. I'm up in Massachusetts right now, working on a new secret project with Alan Parsons.
Wow, amazing.
Oh, I guess it ain't a secret.
Not now, not now. No, you know what? A concert promoter is certainly like a special breed, and it takes passion. And you almost have to be like the smartest, coolest gambler on the planet. But like you have it, like you were on that little short list of people from around the world that, wow, you're the go-to guy. And when you look at this book, it's like, Jesus, it's absolutely incredible.
Well, like a lot of the musicians that I write about, we all have had some really spectacular times. The level of it doesn't always match like a previous year or previous decade. I mean, I was given the good timing of when I came up, when I grew up, that, all these great bands that people still listen to and revere today, they get new fans every day. All the Beatles and all the Led Zeppelins and the Rolling Stones and the Pink Floyds, all those groups are as big or bigger today than they ever were. They have new fans coming on board all the time because that's how timeless that music is. But not everybody stays at that Paul McCartney heat level that whole time. And it's a really interesting dynamic what happens in all of our careers as time goes up, where things change. You're bigger, you're smaller. I mean, 20 years ago, there wasn't a Live Nation to contend with. So, like in the 80s and the 90s, I mean, we were free to really be the best at who we were in our respective markets and really look after, and police, the artist rosters all over the country, all over the world, to make sure we got the best bands for our audiences. And, like anything else that becomes popular, it actually turns into big business, which doesn't make it a bad thing. It just makes it a little bit of a different thing. But the great news is we still get to have concerts and people can go to them again, which I'm sure everybody's really excited to do and hang out and enjoy something together,
Can you tell me the magic moment where it dawned in your brain, like, this is my calling? This is what I meant to do.
I might not have known it at the time, but it has to be. It all started with discovering the Beatles before they put out "I Want to Hold Your Hand" and "She Loves You" and all the rest that followed there. The Ed Sullivan Show. I was on them very early as a kid, and I got to tell people about them, and nobody knew who they were. So, I'm going, this is the greatest band I've ever heard. And I turned out to be right. It is the greatest band I've ever heard. And I was telling everybody about them. They'd shrug and say, yeah, that's great. But then "I Want to Hold Your Hand" came out, and they got a lot of attention from that song. And then they followed it right up on another label with "She Loves You." And the rest, and then Ed Sullivan happened. So I was right in my head. That's all the satisfaction I needed. And it just really touched it all off, because after that, I mean, I got interested in them. I got interested in their names and their backgrounds and who they were. And they were coming to America to tour and play shows, and we didn't get to go. I don't know why. I should have insisted on it, but I was maybe 10, 11. But
not too much power at 10.
Well, we were, my power was pretty good at 10 because my brother and I were going to ball games and football games all the time. So I was allowed to go downtown with him. He was like 15, 16, and I was 10, 11, whatever. So you know, we got around, but we didn't do that one, which I still don't know why. I can't remember. But, you know, by the end of the 60s, then all these other bands came up, and you're seeing more and more. You hear about the Fillmore, East and West, and Bill Graham, and San Francisco, and Easy Rider, and the whole culture exploded. You know, the riots, MLK, Bobby Kennedy, everything that went on at that time. I mean, it was an explosive time in history and in music. And as I started going more and more to shows, and then Woodstock happened, I was just engaged, and it all spoke to me, I guess, because I became really intrigued with it. I remember a couple of my friends, really good friends still to this day, when we were boisterous and we bragged at each other about what we were going to do or something, you know, one would just, they go like this and go, boom, right? And I said, that's not bull. I'm going to do it. And part of the reason I did was just to show them I could, you know, because they sassed me when I said that's what I was going to do. And, you know, when it happened, I mean, they were very happy for me, of course, but, you know, it was a lofty goal, you know, and I had no idea how lofty until I got there. And now you're in the middle of it, and you just do the right thing, keep pushing forward and doing whatever's getting you all that attention and those phone calls in terms of being the guy in your area, you know, to put on shows. So
I loved reading about, I loved reading about the whole Bay Area beginnings, and like having a relationship with somebody like Bill Graham, that must have been key to your life.
Well, you know, he definitely was somebody I looked up to. You know, I didn't work for him. I mean, I was around him, and I worked at a couple of his shows. So yeah, I guess technically I worked a few gigs for him, but I wasn't employed by him as a regular employee. And it was just a couple of show things that I did at a very low level, but it still, you know, gave me a lot to think about and a lot to look at and a lot to aspire to. And he was definitely part of the reason why I chose to do this too. I had a lot of good things.
Let me ask you a business question, because you went from solo to the Clear Channel Live Nation experience, and then back to solo, I know in quotation marks, if you know what I mean. You weren't absolutely solo, but those transitions, what did you learn? It must have built you. It was.
Well, you know, as you grow up and as you get older, you go through different things that you can always look back on and say, was that the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do? But while you're facing it in the eye, you do what you think is best. And in 2000, I mean, there was a real change going on in the business world of music. The record companies became pretty much dinosaurs. The internet they completely demolished them. And big business, and like I said before, big business moves into anything that's popular. I mean, years ago there were no Circle K's or 7-Elevens. There were mom and pop delis on the corner, you know, which don't exist as much anymore. They're still around, but you got to look for them. There used to be record stores everywhere. There's no record stores. The internet just demolished a lot of people, and a lot of, you know, and then it also made a lot of people rich and gave people other employment. So, I mean, I guess it's a win-win or a win-lose. I don't know what, but, you know, it got very hard, and the numbers just got so high. And here's an offer to give me something to take off the table and still do what I do and still be an influence and have some power while I'm doing it, and basically still doing what I'm doing. And that's what I sold into with the original people that were called SFX. That was a conglomerate of promoters, but little did we know that the guy that gave us the money, while it was decent money, in retrospect, it could have been more if you ask me, because what he did was he sold us to Clear Channel. We had no idea that was going to happen. It just, I mean, it happened, and it happened awful smooth. Like, I mean, and he's dead now. And I've thought about it a few times. Like, I can't sue a dead guy, but I wanted to, and it always occurs to me that I think that should have been disclosed if that was in fact in the plans all along, because we were basically bought and sold. Just like just like well, use whatever word you want. But I didn't think of myself as a possession like that, but that's what it turned out to be. And then Clear Channel realized they made a horrible deal, and they didn't get the whole concert business anyway. And that they were able to lose the concert division, to which became Live Nation through some deal they made with the government. And here it is. That was 15 years ago. So I stayed with them for 5 years, and then we broke up. I was basically getting paid to be put to sleep, which, was their prerogative. They employed me. They can use you as much or as little as they want when they're paying you a decent salary. But I got it, to be honest, it was like they had their agenda and I wasn't part of it. And not as much as I wanted to be after doing this for 25, 30 years at the time, 40 years, whatever it is. So it was good that we broke up, and I'm still doing shows and they're doing their shows, and we're all alive to talk about it.
Well, April Wine always said that rock and roll was a vicious game, right?
Yeah, well, it is. It can be, but anything worth having is generally not a walk in the park.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, going through the book, this is really funny. I'm looking at it going, there must have been a lot of career envy around you, because I'm looking at all these photos and all these relationships, but I'm sure people just didn't understand that these bands and people, who they are, people, they're partners with you. They need to work with promoters and vice versa. It's still really surreal to see all these relationships, but at the end of the day, you were helping build their careers.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a great thing for you to be able to be in a garage in New York and come up with something so well and be convincing enough that you get along with other guys in your group. And it's amazing when you think about how these things start on a whim and become reality. And suddenly there's people who like you so much that you've never met before are going to pay you and guarantee you money and pay you when you get there and do your job, and help break you. And those first visits to any town are the most important for bands, because it shows that they've arrived, that they can go out on tour and play places they've never been to before and have people there waiting to see them because somebody promoted them. So yeah, with people who got their eye on the ball, these bands and their managers and their agents, they pay attention to that stuff for the most part. It's a good idea to know who you're in business with when they're actually using your name to sell tickets. So get involved, man, and be part of the solution of promoting the show. It's difficult in some cases. After a while, these bands get long in the tooth and they go, I don't need to do that anymore. I did all that. Well,
Right.
But we're still selling tickets today. Do you care if people show up? I mean, it's all about that energy that people put forth, that people feed off of when they decide to go to a show. But if it's just dead and you just say so and so's coming, throw it up on social media, and it's like, well, why aren't people buying tickets? There's no excitement. You got to have excitement. It's still show business, and show me. Let's go.
Well, I have to laugh because I'm looking at like all the visuals here, and like, could you imagine if the smartphone was with you back then? Maybe it's a good thing it wasn't.
Well, I mean, the phone was with me since 1987.
Okay.
So, I mean, 34 years of phone, 34 years of having 34 years of having people be able to put their hands on me, where like in the bathroom. And I don't mean in a good, they can get me, they can reach me there. It's always great when you're like going through an airport, you get off the plane. It used to be you would run to the bank of payphones, but now you just you get off the plane, you get on your phone, which I still haven't been answered the question, why did they take phones off of planes and you can't use your cell phone, but you could use their phone? And now they don't even let you have those anymore. But then you can text and email, so it's okay. You can still work while you're doing stuff. But anyway, a lot of things have changed, and the good part of it is, like I said, a lot of really great bands are still around, and there's new ones coming up all the time, and we'll live to see another day.
So Danny, where's all this memorabilia? And what is like your most prized possession? What's the most valuable? Because that's two different questions.
There's a lot of really cool stuff that's like super valuable to me, that I don't know if it'd be valuable to other people. And there's other obvious things, like anything Beatles signed, I really treasure, and I enjoy that. I've collected over the years some really cool stuff. A guitar signed by him, it's very cool. I got a Paul thing signed, a guitar, one of his Hoffners. There's Rolling Stone stuff and John Prine stuff that I love. I got all kinds of John Prine fly swatters, and it goes from the ridiculous to the sublime to the truly valuable, and great stuff. All the contracts and all the show files for all those years. I mean, thousands and thousands of them, thousands of T-shirts that are waiting to come out and for me to share them with people. I'm one of my life's goals now is to break even on the storage fee since 1995, when I started I have 5 storage rooms that are full to the floor to the ceiling with this stuff, posters, pictures, frame stuff. I mean, and really, really wonderful things that I've saved or held on to for all these years, never knowing what I was going to do with them. I'd hope to have a museum for them, but that doesn't seem to be, I just haven't found one, or nobody's offered me one, or maybe I haven't yelled for it loud enough. But I'd love to show, like, for 6 months, this collection and change things throughout that time, and theme out some rooms with, local stuff and Vegas stuff and national stuff, and just stuff that I've gathered. It's really fun. I mean, it entertains me, and I'm a pretty hard audience when it comes to memorabilia, because I know people who have serious collections too, and I we're always weird about that. Do I have as good a stuff as that guy? And there's some people out there that got ridiculous record collections and actual, authentic gear from these bands somehow that they've either bought or sold or stolen, or however they got it. But some people's stuff puts mine to shame, and I got good stuff. So think about what they have. I mean, they got world class.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just whatever it is. Getting a set list, and Jeff Beck signing a set list for me. I mean, I don't sell that shit. I mean, that's for me. And I got a lot of stuff like that I would never part with. As long as I'm alive, anyway.
Who was the best partier you've ever hung with? This is a hangover question in showbiz.
I would say my favorite guy to do that kind of stuff, hang out with and party, was Sam Kinison. Nobody likes Sam. He was so much fun. He really was the life of any party he was at, as opposed to a lot of comedians who are pretty somber when they're off stage. Or a lot of comedians are really depressed guys, and they make fun of stuff, and they're great at it because they're so used to feeling bad. So that's what inspires a sad comedian. Just like songs, unless something bad happens to you, what are you going to write about? Sunshine Superman? I mean, that worked for Donovan, but it doesn't work for that one doesn't work all the time.
One thing I got out of your book kind of applies to this T-shirt, the whole personal preference thing. And it's got to be a balance between personal and a business decision. But I really was fond of that first Rush story that you told in the book.
What an idiot. I knew I was wrong the minute I did it. This other guy got 3 markets: Vegas, Tucson, and Phoenix. I think it was, or maybe Albuquerque, or all 4. I think it was 3, though. I remember 3. And he paid him $8,500 a show. It was $5,000 for them, plus $3,500 for their lights and sound that they brought with them.
Yeah.
And the tickets were like $6, $7. And they did like 8,000-9,000 people a night. And I thought, shit, if they do 4,000 or 5,000 at that cheap ticket, I'm going to get killed. So I just didn't want to take the risk. I wasn't 100% confident. So I made the right move, except I made the wrong move. I would have been right if I knew what I was doing regarding Rush. And I just wasn't plugged into it at the time. I ended up doing them many times later because Clear Channel, or, you know, we all got a lot more shows as a result of that partnership at the beginning. And so I ended up working with them several times, and you know, they're great, first class professionals. Their fans adore them. You know, it's always great to be around bands that have fans that egg them on so much. You know, it's great.
Kind of reading about your personal taste. Did it take you a while to warm to the whole metal world in the 80s? And I think it probably got to the time where there's a lot of money here. When you're talking about the Scorpions and Guns N' Roses and Metallica, it's like things are, growing up as a Metallica fan, I never thought in my lifetime that I would say that they are the biggest band on the planet when I had Kill 'Em All as an import from England. You know what I mean? So this scene, you know what I mean? How did you slowly fall in love with the metal scene?
Well, it just came out. I mean, all those bands, a lot of the bands from Europe just became evident, and their booking agents started bringing them over. The Def Leppards, the Scorpions. I wasn't Black Sabbath. I kind of got involved. I got with Ozzy in 1980. It's just, you know, the scene became evident. It became part of the music scene. But until the late 70s, you know, it wasn't a real big business because there wasn't a lot of radio stations playing that stuff. And then when it came in vogue, and it was cool to be into metal, especially on the radio, and people heard these great bands playing this great rock music. And they realized that they would get more listeners if they played more of it. And, you know, we started having a business with metal people. Otherwise, prior to that, they played clubs or small places when they were able to get out on tour. You know, Iron Maiden came from ATI. There's a couple agencies in New York they specialized in these great bands. And I was already familiar with most of them. But then when they started touring the way they did, and you know, I could get them for like $5,000, $7,500, $10,000 back then. But keep in mind, the tickets weren't a lot. They were $6, $8, $10 maybe at that time, maybe 12. And so you had to watch yourself. You had to do a lot of tickets in order to come out on them. But I've always loved hard rock music. You know, I mean, from the 60s, we had incredible, great hard rock bands that, you know, I mean, the Stones were a hard rock band to me. Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple. I mean, all these bands came out in the 60s and they were phenomenal. Savoy Brown, Santana wasn't exactly metal, but they were loud and abrasive. They rocked their asses off. You know, so, you know, the whole Woodstock thing, all those bands, The Who, 10 years after. I mean, how do you not get into that? You know, It's not like, you know, at the time you would never compare bands, the new metal bands like Priest or Maiden, you wouldn't compare them to The Who out of respect for The Who. But now, all these years later, now here's Who, the Priest, celebrating 50 years from their first record. What an accomplishment, you know, for those guys to have been together and apart and back together to their fans' delight, unlike certain other bands that we'd love to see get back together. You know, and it's like mommy and daddy got divorced and they ain't talking. You know?
Yeah, exactly. I have to reflect on the cover because I think I'm close. It was second year university, and it was my first Pink Floyd show, Momentary Lapse of Reason. And I'm reading this thing, and I'm like, that is from that tour. This photo on the cover.
Yes.
Okay.
The reason it's there, I was using that for our actual backstage pass over the last couple of years, that picture and All Access, because that's what I wanted to name the book a couple of years ago, but I liked it for the pass. Whether I used it for the book was irrelevant. So that's what we use for identification to get around our concerts, is that picture. So it ended up on the cover. Some people didn't want it on the cover because they thought I looked like a Peruvian coke dealer, but the fact was I was very happy to be counting the parking money after that Pink Floyd show, because my astute head of security went out and rented parking lots around the stadium, and we set up shuttles and lights and security and the ability for people to park, because it was in a small stadium that only really held 8,000 for minor league ball games. we had 25,000 people coming a night, so we needed triple the amount of spaces that they had available. So we rented them, and it worked out. If we didn't do that, I would have lost money on the show.
Wow, insane. One last question for you, sir. If you could pick one concert T-shirt to wear, that's like your pride and glory, what would it be?
This is one of them, and I never get to wear it because I had more weight on me, and I just happen to have it on. We're going out to dinner tonight, and
ELP, right? I can only half see it. Oh, King Crimson. Sorry. Okay. Nice. Beautiful.
Is that gorgeous?
It's gorgeous. A belly that needs to be filled up.
I never really wore the shirt because it was always too tight on me, but I've managed to back away from the dinner table a little bit lately, and finally, I mean, it's a large shirt. I've been in XLs for the last 20 years.
Nice.
So I'm very happy to be wearing this shirt for a number of reasons. It's clean. It's an old shirt that's brand new.
Sweet.
Yeah. They're one of my favorites.
This is a total pleasure. I hope we get to meet someday. I love the whole Phoenix vibe. Congratulations, and the whole collection thing just it sends shivers. So thank you so much.
Well, that's